Well, folks, by my clock, it's now 2 o'clock, 2:01. My name is Brian Sechrist, and I have been designated as the public hearing officer in connection with this public hearing being conducted by the city of Binghamton, which from the rest of my comments, I'll be referring to as the city. And in accordance with the New York Eminent Domain Procedure Law, which I'll be referring to as the EDPL, we are here today on the 21st day of February, 2023 at 2 p.m. in the city council chambers located at 38 Hawley Street, in the city of Binghamton, to open and conduct a public hearing concerning the proposed acquisition, as that term is defined under the EDPL, and used during this public hearing by the city of all or a portion of certain real property, again, as that is defined under the EDPL and used in this public hearing, comprising 5 tax parcels and approximately 24.21 acres, plus or minus, collectively in connection with the proposed public project, as that term is defined under the EPTL, as outlined during this public hearing. This public hearing is being conducted pursuant to the Eminent Procedure Law in order to inform the public and to review the public use to be served by the public project and the impact on the environment and residents of the locality near the public project. In accordance with the Eminent Domain Procedure Law, notice of this public hearing was duly published in the Press and Sun Bulletin on February 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, 2023, as required by the Eminent Domain Procedure Law. Such notice is hereby submitted or has been submitted to the stenographer and is entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit A. Any person in attendance at this public hearing will be given a reasonable opportunity to present oral or written statements and to submit other documents concerning the public project. If you would like an opportunity to speak at this public hearing or to submit written statements or other documents, please sign in at the table in the back to the far up to the right. And if you have not done so already, the names will be called in the order in which they appeared on the sign-in sheet. As provided in the notice of public hearing, persons unable to attend this public hearing or persons in attendance at this public hearing may also submit to the city prior to the end of this public hearing any written statements or other related documents regarding the proposed public project. Such written statements and or other documents will be part of the public record of this hearing. Comments received after the close of this public hearing will not be considered. I would also like to inform everyone that this is a public hearing. It is not a question and answer session. It is instead an opportunity for you to present your views to the city so they may be considered by the city when it makes its determination and findings as required by the Eminent Domain Procedure Law. A record of this public hearing is being made, including written statements submitted at or prior to this public hearing. And when available, copies of such records will be available to the public for examination without cost during normal business hours at the city clerk's office and the Binghamton County Clerk's office. And copies of such record will be reproduced upon written request to the city and payment of the cost thereof. Written requests for such records shall be addressed to the city of Binghamton in care of Mayor Jared M. Cram, 38 Hawley Street, Binghamton, New York, 13901. Also, copies of the map outlining the proposed location of the public project and a description of the property subject to condemnation are available at the sign-in table in the back. And also copies of other exhibits referenced in this public hearing are also available at that sign-in table. I will now allow a representative of the city to continue with the public hearing.
Good afternoon. My name is Jared Cram. I'm the mayor of the city of Binghamton. The real property being considered for acquisition by the city and the subject of this public hearing consists collectively of approximately 24.21 acres, plus or minus, located in the city of Binghamton, Broome County, New York, at the following addresses: 31 West State Street, identifiable by tax ID number 144.74-1-19, approximately 2.72 acres. 37 West State Street, identifiable by tax ID number 144.66-1-17, approximately 0.61 acres. 33 West State Street, identifiable by tax ID number 144.74-1-1, approximately 20.38 acres. 41 West State Street, identifiable by tax ID number 144.74-1-7, approximately 0.43 acres, and 29 West State Street, identifiable by tax ID number 144.74-1-8, approximately 0.07 acres, and upon which is located, among other things, an existing and predominantly vacant multi-tenant retail shopping center with a mixed-use office building, the Strip Plaza, along with 3 outparcels, collectively the outparcels, one of which is vacant. The Strip Plaza and the outparcels are collectively referred to during this public hearing as the proposed site. The proposed site is commonly known as the Binghamton Plaza, and the proposed site may be referred to as such or as the Plaza during this public hearing. To the city's knowledge, the proposed site has always been owned by Binghamton Plaza, Inc., referred to during this public hearing as the owner. The Binghamton Plaza has certainly seen better and brighter days. The plaza was once a major economic contributor to the city and an asset to the North Side community. Over the years, anchor tenants such as a Grand Union grocery store, movie theater, and a Kmart made for a vibrant shopping center and a proud namesake plaza of the city of Binghamton. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case. Such anchor tenant space, along with most of the remaining space at the plaza, has become and remain vacant. For decades, the condition of the Binghamton Plaza has deteriorated in a downward spiral with no action or reinvestment from the owner. Years of neglect have resulted in the plaza's current state of disrepair, an increasingly unattractive facade, a surface parking lot riddled with potholes and caving in pavement, a leaking roof, vacant storefronts, and an inability to attract quality tenants, including an anchor tenant. For more than 20 years, the owner has, on numerous occasions, publicly alluded to efforts to revitalize and redevelop the Binghamton Plaza. But to this day, no real or significant progress has ever been made. The Binghamton Plaza remains in derelict condition, largely vacant. The plaza has approximately 285,068 square feet of rentable space, of which approximately 256,082 square feet is vacant and listed to be rented at $8 per square foot per year. Such information was obtained from the plaza's listing on loopnet.com, created on June 4th, 2020, and last updated on January 5th, 2023, and a copy of which has been submitted and entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit B. Such lack of tenants amounts to an astonishing 89.8% vacancy rate. Given such an alarming vacancy rate, one would expect the owner to list the plaza's expansive available space for lease on the website of the owner's affiliate and or management company, Galisi Group, collectively referred to during this public hearing as Galisi, where such information is also available regarding their other properties. However, no such information regarding this plaza is available on Galisi's website under Available Properties page at www.galisi.com/properties/retail, a copy of which has been submitted to the public record as Exhibit C. Surprisingly, it does not appear there is any mention whatsoever at all of the Binghamton Plaza on Galisi's website, which would seem to contradict any notion that the owner and or Galisi is interested in reinvesting in, redeveloping, and or actively seeking to increase the occupancy at the Binghamton Plaza. Moreover, since 2014, the Binghamton Plaza has been subject to a brownfield cleanup agreement, index number B7-0702-05-08, under the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Brownfield Cleanup Program, referred to during this public hearing as BCP, making very lucrative tax credits available to the owner and further incentivizing them to redevelop the plaza. And yet, the owner has failed to seize upon the highly sought after BCP tax credits available to them. Such lack of interest and or investment, despite the availability of such BCP tax credits, is surprisingly peculiar, as Galisi was previously successful in utilizing the BCP for other projects, as outlined on their website under the History 2010 page on the Galisi's website, a copy of which has been submitted into the record as part of this public hearing as Exhibit D. It is worth noting that the website also highlights the sheer magnitude of Galisi's experience in development, management, and financing of their other properties and development projects. For example, the website under the quote real estate development page on Galici's website, again, a copy of which has been submitted into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit E, states that Galici has nearly 50 years of experience in managing some of the highest profile development projects in New York State, and that Galici, quote, owns and manages a diverse real estate portfolio in excess of over 11 million square feet. Without a doubt, it is clear that the owner and/or Galici have a wealth of knowledge and experience in redeveloping properties and a track record of seizing upon and utilizing financial incentives and opportunities, such as the BCP tax credits, to assist in redevelopment projects. And yet, for over 20 years, no such effort or actions have occurred with respect to the Binghamton Plaza. Since 2014, the area surrounding the Binghamton Plaza has seen significant public and private investment, including a new grocery store and housing development across the street. Sadly, but not surprisingly, there has been no ancillary economic development benefit at the plaza, despite the positive externalities the city would expect to see for a nearby property. The city attributes this to the owner's inaction and lack of investment at the plaza. There are a wide range of adverse and negative effects associated with the overwhelmingly vacant and derelict plaza, including but not limited to increased incidents of police calls, fire calls, code activity, and economic stagnation, all of which, among other things, stymie economic development and impede discourage residents from safely and conveniently accessing the Two Rivers Greenway Trail, located behind the plaza on the eastern bank of the Shenango River, and the adjacent city park. The plaza, in its present derelict condition, is not a welcoming access point to such existing open space, which in turn makes such green space underutilized. In furtherance of the foregoing and in connection with this public hearing, the city has received the following information from certain of its departments. Police Department. The plaza is a significant drain on police resources, regularly pulling an already understaffed department away from Binghamton's neighborhoods and streets to respond to problems at the plaza. Binghamton Police reported that from June 2020 through June 2022, the Binghamton Plaza had approximately 196 police calls involving 40 different incident types, including the following: burglary, 5, larceny, 5, robbery, 1, criminal mischief, 4, dispute, 5, illegal dumping, 3, police alarm, 19, building checks, 44, prostitution, 1, public health violation, 3, suspicious activity, 10, and abandoned vehicle, 3. Recently, a tenant of the Binghamton Plaza was cited for leasing to an illicit cannabis retailer, causing the city to lose out on important local tax revenue and selling dangerous, untested, and unregulated cannabis products to unsuspecting customers. The Binghamton Fire Department reports that from January 2022 to date, the department has responded to more than a dozen calls for service at the plaza. Binghamton Fire Department Station Number 3 is located adjacent to the property and is directly impacted by the plaza's issues as a result. From the Office of Building, Construction, and Code Enforcement, in 2017, the city's vacant property officer cited the plaza for unsafe conditions, unsafe structures, dangerous structure on or premises, and as a structure unsafe for human occupancy. Other citations were issued at the same time under the city's ordinance for roofs and drainage, interior structures and light, ventilation, electricity, and heat. The plaza was condemned for a period of time for major water leaks. In addition, drone footage captured during an inspection by the city last year shows the deteriorating condition of the building, particularly the roof, which has several large holes. Such drone footage and pictures are available at the website address listed on Exhibit F and are incorporated into this public hearing record by reference. To date, no permits have been issued to the property owner for repairs to the roof since the photos were taken, leaving the city to assume no repairs have been made. From the vantage of the point of the city's Parks and Recreation Department, the plaza has for years negatively affected public access to two key public spaces: the Sherry A. Lindsay Memorial Park, referenced during this public hearing as the Sherry Lindsay Park, and the Two Rivers Greenway Trail, Shenango Promenade segment system, referred to during this public hearing as the Riverwalk. The plaza is located adjacent to Sherry Lindsay Park, the primary park and green space serving the north side, which is home to some of Binghamton's poorest neighborhoods. Beyond local residents, Sherry Lindsay Park is a popular regional attraction with a skate park, dog park, swimming pool, basketball courts, ice rink, ball field, and playground. The Sherry Lindsay Park also hosts the city's summer fun program, a free summer day camp for Binghamton youth, the Binghamton Little League, Binghamton softball, a city youth swim team, national night out, and other special events. The Riverwalk, a paved pedestrian and bike trail that connects the north side to downtown Binghamton, is used by all people of all ages for exercise, recreation, and transit. The plaza's dilapidated condition, which is visible to those accessing either the Sherry Lindsay Park or the Riverwalk, in addition to the ongoing public safety issues associated with the plaza, deter residents from using both spaces and further negatively impact them and the public's ability to enjoy them as intended. This disproportionately affects the thousands of low-income residents who live on the north side near these public spaces. The wide-ranging benefits of access to parks and public spaces has been well documented across disciplines, with links to improved outcomes in public health, public safety, youth success rates, quality of life, and more. A 2018 scholarly article in the Journal of Urban Health reports, quote, as a public good, neighborhood parks may be a particular valuable resource for socioeconomically disadvantaged individuals who may not have the financial resources to exercise at a private gym or fee-based recreation center. Finding ways to increase park use among lower income individuals may help to achieve the broader public health outcome of reducing socioeconomic disparities in health, end quote. Furthermore, the poor condition of the plaza and its proximity to the Sherry Lindsay Park create additional work for the city's Parks and Recreation Department, which is responsible for keeping the parks safe and clean. From the Office of Economic Development, current state of Binghamton Plaza impacts on the ability of the north side of Binghamton to take advantage of the economic development potential being capitalized on in other areas of the city. Based on an analysis from Placer.ai, an industry leader in accurate, reliable location analytics, the demographics of potential patrons who drive by the site would be best matched to a clothing store or grocery store. Under the owner's stewardship and tenure, these very types of tenants have been unable to survive. The Grand Union grocery store closed in 1996, and Kmart grocery and clothing closed in 2016. And the Fashion Bug clothing store closed within the last 10 years. This is a concern to the Department of Economic Development, who work to match businesses with locations where they can find success. The poor track record of being able to retain the exact types of stores best suited to the customer base who frequently passes the site, the owner has demonstrated that they are not suited to owning and managing an important shopping plaza in our community. In addition, it should be of no surprise that the cumulative adverse effects of the foregoing has resulted in the decline of city sales and property tax revenues, lower property values, and diminished quality of life for residents. Indeed, there has been a decrease in the value of the three main properties making up the plaza, 31, 33, and 37 West State Street. Specifically, through the settlement of tax cert matters, the such three parcels saw decreases in their combined fair market values, FMV, for 2017 and 2018 of $2.65 million, going from an original combined fair market value of $3,547,273 down to an agreed upon fair market value of $892,857. Similarly, in 2019, the fair market value was decreased from $3,771,784 down to a fair market value of $949,367. While the owner and the city agreed to a slight increase in fair market value for 2020, up to a fair market value of $1,184,210, it is important to note that from 2017 to 2022, the total agreed upon combined fair market value of such three parcels decreased $2,363,063 from $3,547,273 to $1,184,210. In July of 2019, the owner represented that the plaza held a $0 value. For over 20 years, the owner has had ample opportunity to redevelop and repurpose the underutilized and predominantly vacant Binghamton Plaza, and any suggestion that the owner will start now is arguably more than a stretch of the imagination and wishful thinking. The residents and businesses of the city, especially those on the north side, deserve better. The time for action has been long overdue. Due to the longstanding vacancies and derelict condition, resulting adverse effects in its sheer footprint within the city and proximity to the Shenango River, open green park space, the city feels the predominantly vacant and underutilized Binghamton Plaza is ripe for repurposing for other allowable uses. The time has come to turn this neglected asset into a community opportunity. The proposed acquisition, contemporaneously or in stages pursuant to the EDPL, of the proposed site is required for is in connection with a certain public project consisting of facilitating the productive reuse and redevelopment of the predominantly vacant, underutilized, and derelict proposed site through the undertaking of a public park expansion of the city's existing and adjacent Sherry Lindsay Park, located at the northern portion of the proposed site, to provide for additional and enhanced city public park and recreation facilities, improvements, amenities, and open space, together with landscaping, site infrastructure, and other ancillary and related amenities, facilities, and improvements, collectively city park expansion improvements, and constituting approximately 2.25 acres of the proposed site. And two, a new and enhanced public access to the existing and adjacent multi-use river walk located along the eastern bank of the Shenango River and at the western portion of the proposed site, together with landscaping, site infrastructure, and other ancillary and related amenities, facilities, and improvements, collectively river trail access improvements, and constituting approximately 9.5 acres of the proposed site. In each case, to further the public purpose of providing additional public park and open green space and a safe, welcoming, and convenient access point to recreation amenities for the residents of the city and the general public, thereby to promote their health, safety, wellness, and general welfare. And B, site and infrastructure improvements as appropriate and allowable, including without limitation, demolition of all or a portion of the improvements located at the Binghamton Plaza, surface subsidence restoration, sidewalk repairs, and other ancillary and related amenities, facilities, and improvements on approximately 12.45 acres of the proposed site and along the eastern portion of the proposed site along West State Street in order to return the underutilized plaza to productive use to further the public purpose of advancing the general prosperity and economic welfare of residents of the city by attracting and accommodating appropriate and allowable development and end users, and thereby, among other things, create employment opportunities, promote economic revitalization, decrease the negative impacts associated with large vacant buildings within the city, and increase the city sales tax revenue in the property tax base within the city. Such proposed acquisition, contemporaneously or in stages pursuant of the EDPL of the proposed site, is what has been referred to at this public hearing as the public project. The public project collectively would also complement and advance as appropriate in the public purposes envisioned by the North Shenango River Corridor Brownfield Opportunity Area Step 2 nomination study, referred to during this public hearing as the North Shenango BOA study. The website address is listed on Exhibit G and is incorporated into this public hearing record by reference. And the Blueprint Binghamton Forward Together August 2014 update to the city's 2003 comprehensive plan. As so updated, referred to during this public hearing as the comprehensive plan, the website address is listed on Exhibit G and is incorporated into this public hearing record by reference. There are no alternate locations in connection with the public project. A map of the location and description of the proposed site is available for viewing in this room, and copies are available for you to take at the sign-in table. Such map and descriptions of the proposed site are submitted and entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit H. The city will conduct an environmental review pursuant to and in accordance with Article 8 of the New York Environmental Conservation Law and associated regulations promulgated thereunder, known hereafter as SEEKR, with respect to the public project, and will consider as part of such review the aforementioned North Shenango BOA study and or comprehensive plan, together with any documents upon which such plans are based, as well as the Binghamton Plaza status pursuant to the BCP including the engineering and institutional controls governing the future use of the property as set forth in the BCP's environmental easement. It is contemplated that within 90 days of the conclusion of this public hearing, including the comment period thereafter, the city will make and publish its determination and findings in accordance with the EDPL and seeker, as applicable, regarding the proposed acquisition of the proposed site in connection with the public project. Some final thoughts this afternoon. The most prominent commercial property on the north side, if not the entire city of Binghamton, has been neglected by its owner for more than 2 decades. The Binghamton Plaza has thus signaled that the north side is a neighborhood not worthy of investment or attention. Despite a riverfront site at the confluence of 3 major interstates with major economic development incentives, the owner has failed at rejuvenating the Binghamton Plaza. This in one of the poorest neighborhoods in our community. Those residents deserve better. The city must act, improve this property for the public good, expand green space, open public access to our Riverwalk and waterfront, and allow for badly needed redevelopment along the West State Street corridor. It's been part of the North Shenango BOA study and the comprehensive plan, and it's the most impactful way to revitalize this neighborhood. This concludes my statements on behalf of the city. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, Mayor Cram. This time I'd like to open the opportunity for anyone who would like to present an oral or written statement and or submit other documents concerning the public project. I will remind you, as I did at the beginning, that there's a table in the back on the right where you must sign in before you can speak. I also want to advise, the public is also advised that a reasonable amount of time will be allowed for comments to be made relevant to the public project. I'd also like to remind everyone that this is a public hearing, not a question and answer session. So I will start by calling the first person on the sign-in sheet requesting to speak and or submit written documents. I would also ask that when you step to the microphone, because we do have a stenographer, if you could state your name and how to spell it so that it gets recorded properly in the transcript, and that you also give an address clearly for the stenographer. And if you are here representing an organization, please identify that organization. The first person on the list so far who wished to speak is Ron Borgna. We'd ask that Mr. Borgna would come to the microphone, please. Yes, you may. Okay.
Okay. All right. You start again with the spelling?
Yeah.
You got that part? Or no?
Did you hear that? Could you take down what he was saying? Okay. Yes. Okay. Just a second. I do believe we're ready to continue to proceed. If you'd like to go, sir, forward, sir.
Okay, you want the name again? Okay, Ron Borgna, Borgna, 456 Shenango Street. I live about 2.5 blocks north of the Plaza. And first of all, I'd like to say I resent the mayor calling us a poor neighborhood. The people on the north side are real people. We have likes, dislikes, disagreements. We compromise, we have opinions, but we're genuine people. We don't go around with phony smiles plastered on our faces and stab people in the back. We're real people. And maybe the city is partly to blame that we recall that how many streets get paved on the west side of Binghamton, and you're lucky you get half of one done on the north side. Or the west side gets luxury housing, we get affordable housing. Or our councilwoman the other day on the news is singing the praises of the First Ward Action Council doing rehabilitating houses on the west side. What about the houses on the north side? We live in houses. We don't live in tents or Quonset huts. We have houses. Why don't they do something for us? And what I've seen over the years, I'd say in the last 5 years, were all these businesses going everywhere but in Binghamton. All these in the last 4 or 5 years built three stores, one in Vestal, one on Upper Front Street, one in Johnson City. That would have been a good fit for our north side neighborhood. That didn't happen. I saw the Ocean State Job Lot store locating in Johnson City, again, not in Binghamton. Burn Dairy recently built 2 stores, one in Union and one in Endwell. Why didn't they come to Binghamton? The Green Mountain Electric Supply Company is going to the Kmart Plaza in Endicott. That was also built on a garbage dump years ago. And that a part of it was even torn down years ago. Now, why did they think that was an attractive site over the Binghamton Plaza? Lately, it was on the news, Chick-fil-A is going to locate into Binghamton. Of course, they're going to Vestal, Endicott, or Johnson City, and Upper Front Street. Once again, not in Binghamton. I'd like to know, what does the Economic Development Department in Binghamton do to encourage and entice these businesses to come to Binghamton? Everybody goes all around Binghamton and nobody wants to come to Binghamton. Like, what's the problem there? Too many ordinances, too many fees for applications. What is it? I'm tired of seeing all these places go everywhere else and all these businesses avoid Binghamton. I'd like to know what economic development does to encourage businesses to come to Binghamton, North Side, anywhere in Binghamton. It just doesn't happen. To tell you the truth, living on the North Side, going to the North Side, it's kind of like going to a wake where the person doesn't know he died yet. Lupo's closed, CVS closed, Emmanuel Presbyterian Church closed. Years ago, when in the early 70s, the Binghamton Plaza was the place to go. My wife and I used to spend all afternoon Saturday there, go to Grant's, Grandway, Hallmark, the rag shop. It was like an AC Moore's kind of a store, a Chinese restaurant. Everything was there. But I mean, what does the city of Binghamton do to encourage these businesses? Like that Green Mountain Electric Supply that's going to Endicott. I thought that plaza isn't much different than ours. Why didn't they do something to get them to come to the plaza? And that's all it seems like they want to do, is everything is green space, green space, green space, green space, breweries, and student housing. There's plenty of green space around. In my neighborhood on the north side, the green space, that's just a euphemism for a vacant lot. People take their dogs there to go to the bathroom. And then neighbors end up calling the city public works and saying, can you come and cut the grass on this green space you created because it's full of ticks? So you got to get after them to do that there. So I'm sick and tired of hearing that nonsense about green space. There's plenty of green space around. Binghamton needs businesses to thrive and flourish. And like I said, I'd like to know really what that economic development does to encourage businesses to come to Binghamton, the north side, anywhere in Binghamton. They all go everywhere but Binghamton. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry to be negative, but I feel like it's realistic. That's what it is. That's what it looks like.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
The next individual is Mark McNamara of Barclay Damon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Seacrest, My name's Mark McNamara. As you noted, I'm an attorney with the law firm of Barclay Damon, counsel to Binghamton Plaza Inc., the owner of the plaza and of the real property improvements, all of which are known as the Binghamton Plaza, that are located at the addresses which the mayor provided earlier and are at issue in this city eminent domain procedural law public hearing. I'm submitting this statement and the accompanying exhibits on behalf of Binghamton Plaza Inc. in opposition to the city's proposed acquisition of the plaza by eminent domain, and as part of the record of this hearing. And to that event, to make it easier for the stenographer, I'll give you a copy.
That is Exhibit I.
And just to take, it's an understandable mistake, but I just wanted to correct one thing that the mayor had said. The Galisi Group Inc. And the website that the mayor was referencing, that is an entirely different entity. It's the same name, obviously. It's related in terms of the family, but it is a entirely different entity than that which deals with and owns and operates and is involved in the Binghamton Plaza Inc., which is why there would be no mention of the Binghamton Plaza on the Galisi Group website. The city has on multiple occasions trumpeted its intent to use its power of eminent domain to take the plaza from and over the strenuous objection of its rightful owner through news conferences, media reports, public statements, its motion papers in the federal bankruptcy court seeking to lift the bankruptcy law protection last year. And it's noticing of this hearing, the city has repeatedly characterized the Binghamton Plaza as derelict, near vacant, and underutilized, while accusing the owner of essentially doing nothing at the plaza for 30 years. These characterizations paint, respectfully, an incomplete picture, as they omit the critical context of the historical challenges of redeveloping the plaza and ignore the owner's significant commitment, efforts, financial expenditures, and ultimate success in remediating the property, which was the first, as well as the most difficult and critical prerequisite to any future development. The city's statements and intended actions to acquire the plaza also ignore and do serious damage to the owner's privately funded redevelopment plans that are currently underway and will fundamentally transform the plaza. The city proposes to take the plaza for a publicly funded expansion of Sherry Lindsay Memorial Park, which I'll refer to as the Sherry Lindsay Park, and other, quote, ancillary and related amenities, facilities, and improvements on the remainder of the proposed site, close quote, to, quote, return the underutilized proposed site to productive use, close quote, which are in no way described, let alone identified. The city's action in this regard will result in an enormous financial burden on city taxpayers by removing the property from the city's tax rolls, destroying the redevelopment plans of the owner, and disrupting the environmental remediation of the property, which the New York Department of Environmental Conservation has certified as complete. In contrast, the owner's current redevelopment plans for the plaza, which I'll talk about in a minute, would be privately funded with great benefit to the Binghamton community while maintaining the successful environmental remediation of the property. The power to seize property, private property, over the owner's strenuous objection is one of the most extraordinary governmental powers held by a municipality. Accordingly, both at the constitutional and the statutory levels, the law imposes a variety of very specific limitations and requirements on the city's exercise of that power. Accordingly, the plaza owner objects to the proposed taking of its property as going beyond the city's lawful powers and in violation of, one, its own city charter and code of ordinances. Number two, the New York State General City Law. Number three, Article 2 of the Eminent Domain Procedure Law. And then four, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And five, the New York State and United States Constitutions. The present condition and utilization of the plaza is in large part the result of extensive environmental challenges that required a multi-year effort and significant financial investment to remediate. Historically, and with some irony in view of its proposed taking, the city used the property as a raw garbage landfill from 1946 until 1957. In 1957, the city constructed a municipal garbage incinerator adjacent to and south of the plaza. Through the early 60s, the city then dumped and buried the ash resulting from its waste incineration operations directly onto the properties on which the plaza was built and where neighboring Sherry Lindsay Park is located. The thickness of the waste deposited was at one time estimated to be 10 to 18 feet at the north end of the property and upwards of 35 feet at the south end. Binghamton Plaza Inc. was unaware of the environmental condition of the property, and there was no disclosure by the then seller when it acquired the property to develop the plaza in the 1960s. In 2006, the owner of the plaza applied and was accepted into DEC's brownfield cleanup program, just as the mayor has earlier described, which is designed to, quote, encourage private sector cleanups of brownfields and to promote their redevelopment as a means to revitalize economically blighted communities, close quote. And in the Exhibit I, there's a website that's an internet address that you can go to for that. The agreement and the site plan resulting from the BCP, the Brownfield Cleanup Program, put in place specific standards and requirements that needed to be met in order to satisfactorily remediate the plaza for commercial and other uses. The owner, at its own expense, totaling well over $1 million, undertook and satisfied each of those requirements, resulting in the issuance of a certificate of completion of the program from DEC in 2014. As a result of the owner's remediation efforts, the DEC deemed the entirety of the property suited for commercial and industrial uses and a 1.14 acre portion suited for restricted residential use. The owner has since made significant progress in its plan to redevelop the plaza into a mixed-use development of low-income housing and ancillary commercial facilities. Specifically, the redevelopment would be focused on developing affordable housing for military veterans. The project would be a mixed-use campus, prioritizing housing and services for veterans and take advantage of the property's proximity to the Binghamton Veterans Administrative Community-based outpatient clinic to better serve this population. There would be approximately 400 housing units as 1 and 2 bedroom apartments in new 4-story residential buildings with surface parking and new commercial development along State Street. The project would be constructed in 4 to 5 development phases. A conceptual schematic site plan is submitted with this statement as Exhibit 1. The owner's planned, which is attached to the statement that I provided as Exhibit I. The owner's planned redevelopment of the property would greatly benefit the Binghamton community in addressing the city's shortage of low-income housing, particularly with respect to veterans. The owner's plan to construct low-income housing on the property is also consistent with an important New York State priority in public policy. In her 2023 State of the State address, Governor Hochul emphasized the need to develop additional housing throughout the state in order to address what she describes as a statewide housing crisis. The owner's redevelopment of the plaza into low-income housing will be a key component in dealing with the city's problems in this regard. The owner's completion of the BCP was not only necessary to begin redeveloping the property, but also integral to funding the project itself. As part of its intended goal of encouraging environmental remediation and development of economically blighted communities, the BCP provides tax credits to property owners who successfully complete the program, which can be used to fund development and construction on the property. The mayor referenced those as very lucrative tax credits, and he is absolutely right. Here, the owner has completed the BCP at its own expense and now intends to use the credits awarded by the BCP for purposes of constructing low-income housing and facilitating further commercial development on the property. The city's acquisition of the plaza would destroy these redevelopment plans and raises the prospect that should the city abandon its vaguely stated proposals for the future of the property, it may never be redeveloped in a way that would provide economic and commercial benefits to the surrounding community. The owner's plan to redevelop the plaza into low-income housing is well underway, as it is currently engaged in the final stages of negotiations with a national developer. Those negotiations are nearing an agreement and will be jeopardized by the city's engaging in the eminent domain process itself. That is, the city's public commencement of the process to acquire the plaza by eminent domain undermines the owner's efforts to bring in the national developer to partner in the development. The city's actions in this regard will create a cloud of condemnation over the owner's project, interfering with and ultimately undoing its negotiations with the national developer. Nevertheless, despite the owner having remediated the plaza for purposes of redevelopment, advanced a redevelopment plan that would provide significant benefits to the Binghamton community, almost completed negotiations with a partner to bring its redevelopment project to fruition, the city now intends to take the plaza for purposes that, as outlined below, are both illusory and contradictory. The reality is that, contrary to its stated purpose, the city's actions will significantly delay the timeline to any redevelopment of the plaza versus the conventional and private enterprise redevelopment efforts currently underway by the owner, and will cause great expense to taxpayers. Our objections are the procedural defects with the city's process. First, upon information and belief, the city has failed to comply with the procedural requirements of Article 2 of the EDPL, the New York State General City Law, its own city charter, and code of ordinances with respect to the noticing and conducting of the present public hearing. These procedural defects include, but are not limited to, the city's failure to comply with sections 101 and 301 of the EDPL, which require a condemnor to engage in negotiations with the property at, quote, all stages prior to or subsequent to an acquisition by eminent domain. Here, the city has made no attempt to negotiate with the owner regarding an acquisition of the plaza. In fact, the owner first learned of the city's intent to take the plaza when the mayor held a press conference in July 2022 to that effect on the at the plaza without asking permission to do so or even notifying the owner in advance. The city has never contacted the owner to discuss its intent to acquire the plaza or make any purchase offer, let alone negotiate with Binghamton Plaza Inc. Consistent with that approach, the owner has been forced to learn about the city's proposed taking, as the rest of the public has, through media reports and public statements without ever being approached with respect to any type of a negotiated sale that would alleviate the need for a prolonged and expensive legal process funded by taxpayers. And Mr. Seacrest, I know that I'm supposed to be brief, but as the property's owner, I am pushing my luck here, but I'm going to read even faster here. I'm almost done. The city's public purpose is illusory, vague, contradictory, and unnecessary. As noted above and stated in the notice for this public hearing, the city's stated public purposes in taking the plaza from its owner is to expand the existing Sherry Lindsay Park onto the plaza property, provide improved access to the park, provide improved access to the Two Rivers Greenway Trail system, and then conduct site and infrastructure improvements at the plaza, including but not limited to the demolition of the existing structures, surface restoration, sidewalk repairs, and potential construction of new structures, and to further the general purpose of promoting health, welfare, and economic revitalization, including increasing the city's sales tax revenues and the property tax base within the city, as stated in its notice. In addition to the fact that this proposed project will require significant public funds to undertake, disrupt the environmental remediation, which has already been completed, and require a new and expensive level of remediation for public recreation park uses, the stated purposes purporting to justify the taking of this property are illusory, vague, contradictory, and unnecessary. Specifically, the stated purpose is illusory and vague to the extent that the city has admitted in public statements that it actually does not know what it plans to do with the property other than expand the park. In his July 7, 2022 announcement regarding the city's intent to move to lift the bankruptcy stay and take the property by eminent domain, Mayor Cram stated that the city did not have any specific plans for the property once the plaza is demolished. The city's stated public purposes cites economic revitalization and generating additional tax revenues as justifications for taking private property from its owner, yet it does not provide any specific plans to effectuate these goals other than to demolish the existing structures, some of which currently house active commercial tenants. The city's stated public purpose is also vague to the extent that it states an intent in the notice to take all or a portion, quote unquote, of the plaza. Despite commencing the present proceedings by its own admission in its notice, the city still does not know what portions of the plaza it intends to take. Purported public purpose is also contradictory in that it specifically relies on creating employment opportunities, promoting economic revitalization, and increasing the city's sales tax revenues and real property tax base by taking private commercial property, which currently generates both sales tax and property tax revenues, and eliminating both. Converting private commercial property to expanded city-owned public parkland takes the property off the tax rolls and eliminates the sales tax generated by the businesses operating at the plaza. The plaza is currently on the city's tax roll and up to date on its real property taxes as a result of the settlement of the property tax litigation between the city and the owner, which the mayor described earlier. Again, the result of the city's proposed acquisition of the plaza would be to remove it from the city's tax roll. To the extent the city's stated purpose in taking the property provides any specific plans, it is clear that such plans would require significant public funds to accomplish. In addition to the cost of paying just compensation to the owner to acquire the plaza, the costs associated with demolishing the existing plaza, constructing new access to the park and hiking trail, subsurface improvements, sidewalk repairs, and construction new structures, the city's proposed project would require extensive and expensive environmental remediation. While the owner has successfully and at great cost remediated the property, as I've described before, for uses consistent with its own redevelopment plans, and attached to this statement is the certificate of completion from DEC, which is attached as Exhibit 2, which to my Exhibit I here. The city's plan to expand the existing park by acquiring the plaza would require the property be remediated for public recreation uses, which is a different standard than commercial or industrial. Such remediation for the city by the city to clean up the contamination caused principally by its former incinerator operation and the raw garbage dump will take years and require significant taxpayer funds to complete, while the existing owner of the plaza is close to an agreement with, as I said before, a national developer to complete its own redevelopment plans, which would not be funded by taxpayers and would provide substantial benefits to the community. The city's intent to take the plaza and its purported purpose for doing so is also unnecessary. The city claims that it must take the plaza for purposes of economic revitalization and increasing tax revenues. I'm almost done. But the existing owner's redevelopment plans are ongoing and much closer to finalization than any proposed project by the city. The owner's redevelopment of the property would not only effectuate the goals of economic revitalization and increasing tax revenues in its own right, but also provide much needed low-income housing. The city's stated goals in taking and redeveloping the plaza would therefore be accomplished by simply letting the existing owner keep the property and do its redevelopment. Not only would this course of action save significant public funds, but it would also provide, as I've said, additional benefits to the community. City has failed to comply with seeker. It is not clear from any of the city's statements or publications what, if any, environmental review has been conducted with respect to identifying and taking a hard look at the impacts of its proposed taking and project. This apparent omission is particularly serious in light of the environmental remediation and condition of the property as described above. If any review has occurred, it is unclear what impacts were identified and considered in the findings reached, and to the degree as the mayor described here that the process still has to be undertaken, then we reserve our rights to object to that review until we actually see it. Pursuant to the fifth, just compensation, pursuant to the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 7 of the New York Constitution, the EDPL, and the General City Law, the city is required to pay just compensation for any property interest it acquires with respect to the plaza. Just compensation, quote unquote, has been interpreted by New York courts as, quote, sure and certain compensation. The city's power to tax is not unlimited. It is at best unclear as to how and from what sources the city intends to pay just compensation for the plaza and the development of its project. In short, there is no evidence to suggest the city has the financial resources to satisfy its obligation to pay just compensation for the plaza and develop its proposed project. In conclusion, again, the owner strenuously objects for all the reasons that I've stated above to the city's proposed taking of its property by eminent domain. Its actions are unnecessary, constitute a waste of taxpayer funds, and violate the various statutes that I've referenced. And Mr. Seacrest, thank you very much for your largesse here in terms of letting me go on as long as I did. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrea Thomas, ANDREA THOMAS. I currently own the childcare center in the Binghamton Plaza. It's called Curious Kids Childcare. I have owned it for almost 16 years this year. And in that time, I have serviced hundreds of families and their children. We currently have 60 children enrolled at the center, some as young as 3 months old. Many of the families we serve live within walking distance to the center and do not have transportation, limiting their options for safe and reliable childcare. In addition to the family's transportation limitations, many of our families rely on subsidies to pay for childcare, which would likely not be available to them outside of a licensed childcare facility. I also employ 11 people at the center, some who do live close and do not have transportation if they did get other jobs besides where they are now. We are the only licensed daycare center within a reasonable walking distance from the Town and Country Apartments and the recently developed Canal Apartments, which both provide housing for low-income families in our county. Without access to childcare, families who are already facing financial struggles would be forced to choose between losing their employment or placing their children with unlicensed home providers lacking proper training and a safe environment. Additionally, relocation of a childcare center can be very difficult as we have specific state licensing requirements that must be met, including size requirements, classroom spaces, and an outdoor play area and a kitchen to provide the children meals. Moving would be extremely costly and would likely be impossible for us to stay in close proximity to the families that we currently serve. In addition to our childcare center, there are still many successful businesses renting space in the Northside Plaza, including New York Pizzeria, P&J's Flea Market, Bargain Groceries, and Extreme Bargain Bins. These businesses remain successful and attract customers on a daily basis, many of which, again, would not have access to these services if they were forced to relocate. Also, we have no problem accessing the park. We do walk the children there a couple of times a week. I also keep my property clean and maintain a beautiful playground outside of my building. I've stayed in compliance with the Binghamton Fire Department. I do not misuse the police or fire department, except when we do have our yearly field trips with the kids to the fire department. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philomena Harris. Need spelling on that? Philomena Harris. Harris. And my home address is 156 Revere Street in Binghamton. And the zip code is 13902.
Ms. Harris, for the benefit of the people listening, could you pull the microphone right over to your mouth so that
Okay.
it's picked up in the
I'm
speakers?
a little short, I guess.
That's okay. Thank you. It has to be
Good.
very close.
That's good. Okay. I feel grateful today to speak to you as a business owner in the Binghamton Plaza. My husband Timothy and myself have operated our shoe repair, leather repair business in the plaza since 1972. We have worked hard at our craft and are dedicated to providing the best service to our customers. We have a very substantial and diverse customer base who depend on us and the shoe services we supply. We have people who specifically drive to Binghamton just for us. Locations such as Watertown, Utica, Elmira, Sayre, Syracuse, Manhattan, and Long Island, and lots of other places in Pennsylvania. It is a mix of local and regional populations. With that base, we would obviously be grateful if we were able to keep operating our shop in the plaza. The Gleason Corporation have been wonderful landlords to us. Please consider all this information fairly. It is our whole life and livelihood. And thank you for listening.
How you doing, sir?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Good.
Could
I'm
you
here to
spell your, could you
Oh.
spell your name for the
Oh,
stenographer?
Paulcasiuk. I'm here to represent 70+ vendors and thousands of customers that come every weekend to our flea market. Customers come from all over the Northeast. Eminent domain, taking private property for public use. Pay just compensation for the property. Tied the courts up for years for due process of the law. Is it a benefit to the taxpayers of the city of Binghamton? The taxpayers will have to, number one, buy the property, assess value most likely. Number two, pay for the demolition of the property, probably millions of dollars. Number three, pay for the removal of all of the environmental waste that's under that property, probably in excess of multi-millions of dollars. Pay to create whatever public use the city has planned. Lose businesses and $500,000 in yearly tax revenue. That's a benefit to the people of the city of Binghamton. Also tying up the courts that could be used for better things. The owners of the property have been trying for years to remove some of the buildings that are in rough shape. They want to create a shopping area with a green space and have access to the river. But the city keeps denying their proposals. Why not have the best of both worlds? Approve the changes that the property owners want to make, help them, and keep the $500,000 in revenue in the city's pocket each year. Let's ask the people of the city of Binghamton. Do you want to be on the hook for probably, well, I don't know, I don't even want to know, $5, $6, $7 million to have a park or another green space when the owners want to do the same thing? And really, how many parks do we need? I also would like to thank the mayor for all the publicity. The flea market has been super busy lately. Also seems to me that you have the wrong Gillespie group. Are you sure you're dealing with the right Gillespie group? Thank you very much.
Hi, it's Timothy, Timothy, and Harris, Harris. We have the shoe repair. Basically, you've seen a lot of businesses around here fail because of loss prevention. And you could do more to keep the businesses if there was laws that improve the ability to implement loss prevention. That's why your grocery stores have left and some of the other stores. Right now, you can watch all the shoe repairs go out of business. That's why we're getting all the people coming in from other areas. We could not afford to pay a lot more rent because people don't wear shoes. I wear sneakers, so I'm doing lots of orthopedic work on sneakers. People are driving because they can't pay for high class orthopedic work, stuff like that. So I'm fulfilling that area. That's why I haven't retired, even though I'm 76 years old now. The only other shoe repair is JC, and he's 82. It's on heart medicine, so he's limited on how much he can work. That's it. So we're gonna have the home of EJ shoes with nothing left. Kind of interesting. And that's about it. Okay, thank you.
The next name on the list is Michael Tomasulo. That's the last portion of the list that I have. I don't know if there's been another list up there. Is there? That's the last name on the list. And however, Is there anybody else who would like to speak that would like to did you raise your hands? Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Is there somebody that would like to speak? If you want to come down and speak, now is the time to do it. Raise your hand and come down and we're more than happy to listen. Okay. Seeing that no one else wants to come forward, I thank you for your comments, and I believe it's now 3:07 and the public hearing is now closed. Thank you so much for attending.
Hi, Mark. Right.